Hello, my name is Anthony, and this is my terrifying true-to-life Christmas story. It happened 3 years ago, during a snowstorm that knocked out the power across our neighborhood. My parents were working late, so I was home alone, sitting near the window with a blanket and a flashlight. Outside, everything looked quiet, too quiet. Snow made the whole street feel muffled, like sound couldn't escape. Around 8 p.m., I heard crunching footsteps outside my house. At first, I thought it was just a neighbor walking by, but the steps stopped right in front of our porch. I peeked through the blinds, expecting to see someone brushing snow off their boots, or maybe dropping off a package. But there was no one. No shape, no shadows, no movement. Just snow, smooth and untouched, as if nothing had been there at all. But the sound of the footsteps had been real, close, heavy. I tried to brush it off as my imagination until a few minutes later I heard something even worse. 3 slow knocks on the front door. Not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. I froze. We had a glass panel next to the door, and from where I stood I could see the porch. There was no figure. The snow on the steps remained perfectly smooth. I didn't answer. A minute later, another knock, this time from the back door. I didn't check that one. I just grabbed my phone, locked myself in the bathroom, and stayed there until my parents came home. When we checked outside later, there were footprints circling the entire house, but none leading to or away from the property. Just a circle. To this day, I still don't know who or what was walking around our house that Christmas night. But that wasn't the end of it. In fact, that was just the beginning. For the next few days, everything felt normal. My parents said maybe ice had shifted on the roof, or the wind knocked something against the siding. I tried to believe them, but the footprints, those weren't something the wind could make. A few days later, we went outside to take down the decorations. The storm had left everything buried under clean, untouched snow. As we walked along the side of the house, I noticed something poking out of the snow. It was a torn piece of fabric. When I picked it up, it was cold and stiff, dark red and old-looking, with edges that were frayed and uneven. My mom said maybe it came from an old scarf someone dropped, but the way it was placed felt intentional. The snow around it wasn't disturbed randomly. It was smoothed out, almost like someone had sat there. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Around 3 a.m., I suddenly woke up. My room was dark except for faint moonlight. At first, everything was quiet. Then I heard it, a soft tapping on my window. I froze. The window was literally inches from my bed. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see what was making that sound. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The tapping continued, slow and patient. I slid quietly out of my bed, opened my door, and stepped into the hallway. The tapping was still going on behind me. Eventually it stopped. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I checked the outside of my window. My breath fogged the cold air. And that's when I saw them. Long smudges on the glass. Not clear prints, just faint streaks. Like someone had pressed their fingers against the window and dragged them downward. The snow beneath the window wasn't stepped on. It was flattened, pressed, as if something had been standing there without leaving normal footprints. That would have been bad enough, but a few nights later, things escalated. It was around 11 p.m. I was in bed playing on my phone. My parents were downstairs watching a movie. Everything felt normal. Then I heard it, a long dragging sound along the side of the house, like fingertips sliding slowly across the siding. The sound traveled all the way from the back corner of the house, past the kitchen window, past the living room, and toward the hallway wall. My parents muted the TV. They looked at each other. Then we heard 3 knocks, slow and muffled. But they weren't on the door. They were on the wall. Just the wall. My dad checked outside with a flashlight. He didn't find anyone. But in the morning, we saw long melted trails across the outer wall. Not scratches, just smooth melted lines as if warm fingers had traced the entire house. We left and stayed with my aunt for 2 weeks. When we came back, the last of the snow had melted. The marks were gone. Everything looked normal again. But we all knew something had happened. My room felt different, colder, heavier, as if someone had been waiting there. Every winter since then, the house feels wrong in December. Sometimes at night, when the wind is perfectly still, I still hear faint tapping on my window, or a soft crunch outside in the snow. Not moving toward the house, not moving away, just waiting, like whatever walked around our house that Christmas never really left. Hello, my name is Mariah, and this is the story of the Christmas that made me believe, truly believe, that some places hold memories long after people leave them behind. My family used to go to my grandparents' cabin every December. It wasn't creepy, at least not at first. It was old, sure, but warm and bright and full of decorations my grandmother made years ago. The forest around it was quiet, and the nearest neighbors were a long walk away. But the woods had this strange feeling in winter, like something was awake between the trees. The year everything happened, we arrived a few days before Christmas. Snow had already coated the ground, and the cabin lights glowed warmly through the windows. Inside, everything smelled like cinnamon and pine. We set up the Christmas tree, and my little brother Jamie was placing the bottom ornaments when he suddenly froze and whispered, "Who's that in the window?" We all turned. The front window reflected the tree lights in soft colors. At first, we didn't see anything, but when the lights blinked, the reflection seemed to shift, like a shadow had stepped back into the darkness outside. Dad checked, Mom checked, no footprints, no movement. We brushed it off. That night, things started getting weird. The tree lights kept blinking in a pattern, not random like usual, more like signals. 3 blinks, pause, 5 blinks, pause. Sometimes a cluster. It went on for hours. Then around midnight, one of the ornaments on the higher branches began to sway. There was no heater blowing, no open doors. The cabin was completely still, except for that single ornament moving like someone had brushed their fingers across it. Dad said it was settling, whatever that means. But then the ornaments near the bottom started shifting too. Not violently, just a slight rotation, the way something turns when someone is trying to get a better look at it. We went to bed. Or tried to. I woke up at 2:17 a.m. because the tree lights were blinking again. Not colorful anymore, just white like they had switched modes on their own. And they were blinking fast, too fast, like someone tapping a finger rapidly on the plug. Then I heard soft tapping on the window. Not knuckles, not claws. Just a light, rhythmical tapping, like fingernails. I woke my brother. We quietly peeked around the corner. No one was outside. But the tapping didn't stop. When Dad got up, the tapping immediately ceased. When he looked, the snow outside the window had small melted indentations, like someone had been standing there for a while, body heat sinking into the snow. We tried to forget it, but the next morning made that impossible. All the ornaments on the bottom half of the tree were gone. Not fallen, gone. We searched everywhere, even assuming maybe one of us had moved them. Nothing. Then Jamie found them, outside. Arranged neatly in a circle in front of the cabin, half buried in the snow. Perfect spacing, perfect shape, like someone had carried them out one by one, in the dead of night, and placed them carefully. And beside the circle were footprints. But they weren't human. They were too long, almost stretched, with narrow heels and toes that pointed inward, like the feet had been twisted. They weren't animal prints either. They were wrong. Dad took pictures but deleted them the moment we got back to the city. He said he didn't want anything like that saved. Dad took pictures but deleted them the moment we got back to the city. He said he didn't want anything like that saved. That evening we packed up early. We didn't stay another night. But here's what keeps me awake sometimes. On the drive home, we passed the tree line, and Jamie whispered to me, "Don't look out your window." Of course I did. There, between the trees in the shadows, something stood. Tall, thin, perfectly still. And as we passed, the forest lights reflecting off the snow made it look like its face blinked. Not eyes, just light, blinking back at us. We never went to the cabin again. My grandparents sold it the next year. But sometimes around Christmas, when our tree lights blink in patterns, I turn them off, just in case someone or something is trying to answer.